Hello, everybody. Welcome back to PW IELTS and TOEFL Prep. My name is Vandana, and this is your IELTS 0 to Hero 2.0 series. Now, today we are going to dive deep into writing task 1 of academic IELTS, and specifically, we are going to dissect every single detail about line graph so that you can score a high band if you are going to get line graph on the day of exam. Let me first show you the agenda slide and tell you what exactly we are going to cover today. And yes, how are you guys? How was the week? Okay, here you go. We are going to understand the band 9 approach, which is the set framework. And just allow me a moment. Right, so we are going to understand what exactly is the set framework, which is specifically used for line graphs. We are going to understand 3 mistakes to avoid, especially when you are dealing with line graphs. What are the 3 mistakes that you must avoid? We'll, of course, practice vocabulary. I'll show you a complete sample report written by me, and I'm also going to give you a checklist using which you can analyze and plan your line graphs just in the first 2 to 3 minutes. Hi, IELTS aspirant. Hi, IELTS aspirant. How are you? Okay, now in the first 2-3 minutes, we always tell you कि भाई plan कर लो, analyze कर लो. But how to do that planning and analysis? Today, I'm going to give you a checklist for that. Just take that checklist and tick, tick, tick. You will be able to do planning as well as analysis, and that will really keep your mind at peace. तो start करते हैं without much ado. Okay, here we go. Let's first understand about the basics, time allocation, because this is important. If you goof up here, then the entire writing module can be screwed. You know what? You are supposed to write a minimum of 150 words in just about 20 minutes. You are given 1 hour for the writing module, but out of that 1 hour, you are supposed to keep aside 20 minutes for task 1 and 40 minutes for task 2, which is your essay writing. Now, as far as these 20 minutes are concerned, guys, this is something that is super important. These 20 minutes are not only for writing. What you need to do is, in the first 2 minutes, you need to plan plus analyze. इसका क्या मतलब होता है? We will understand this in detail today, and I am going to make you a pro today when it comes to planning and analysis stage. In the last 2 minutes, you are going to check your work for any grammatical goof-ups, spelling goof-ups, proofreading basically, and that will leave you with around 16 minutes in your hands to write the entire report. Now you need to understand something here. In these 16 minutes, you are going to write 4 paragraphs. That means you barely have 4 minutes per paragraph. So when you do this kind of mathematics, you realize that what is the speed that is required of you. Anyway, moving on, let's understand through my checklist the planning and analysis stage. Just give me a sec, guys. Yeah. All right. So this is the graph that we are going to dive deep into today. But having said that, let's read the question. It says the graph below gives information about the number of jobs in 4 sectors of the economy in the US between 1960 and 2020. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Write at least 150 words. So how exactly? In the first 2 minutes, you have to understand the entire graph. You also need to plan that, okay, this is something I will take in my body paragraph 1. That is something that I will take in my body paragraph 2. And when you divide that information in body paragraphs, it needs to be logical. आप इस तरह से divide नहीं कर सकते कि मेरा मन कर रहा है तो मैं ये body paragraph 1 में लिखूंगा और मेरा मन कर रहा है इसलिए ये मैं body paragraph 2 में लिखूंगा. We can't do that on the basis of our मन, on the basis of whims and fancies. तो इसको करना कैसे है? Planning and analysis. Now this is the analysis checklist, and I would appreciate responses from you. Ask yourself what is given on the x-axis. Look here. x-axis पे क्या दिया हुआ है आपको? The years 1960 to 2020. What is given on the y-axis? Here you are given jobs in millions, starting from 0 to 25 millions. how many categories are given to you? You are given these 4 categories: manufacturing, retail, agriculture, and healthcare. In what units is the data given to you? The data is given to us in millions. Which tense will you use to write this report? Because the data is of past. The data is from 1960 to 2020. It's important that you write this report using past tense. Otherwise, goof up ho jayega. Which category is most striking? Now, this is something that I want answer from you. Out of these 4 categories, which category do you see as the most striking one, guys? Name that category in the chat box here in the comments. Which category out of these 4 is the most striking, most prominent for you? The most prominent category is this one, the manufacturing, because if you see from 1960 till 2020, it has remained the highest. I mean, not the entire, but most of the time period, it has remained the most in demand. Matlab, a lot of jobs, the most number of jobs were coming from this segment, this industry, that is manufacturing. And then next question, what is the trend for this category? You should be able to describe the trend. Now, the trend is first the number goes up sharply and then consistently it keeps coming down till the end. So it goes up and then comes down. That is the trend we are observing here. And what are the trends for other categories? This also you need to see in the first 2 minutes. So for this category, if we see the orange line, till the year 2000, the numbers remained stable, and after that, there was just a very slight decline. Now, the remaining 2 categories, the green and the purple, a consistent growth can be observed in both these categories. So this is how in the first two minutes, just analyze the graph, what is given on x-axis, what is given on y-axis, what tense will you use, how many categories are there, what's the trend of each category. Ask yourself all these questions. And what are the trends of the other categories, right? So this is a checklist for the first 2 minutes. अभी हमने सिर्फ एनालाइज करा है, वी हैव ओनली डन दी एनालिसिस. अब हमें ये भी देखना है कि भाई इसमें से क्या हमारे बॉडी पैराग्राफ्स में जाने वाला है. आई विल टीच यू द स्ट्रक्चर ऑल्सो, बट let's imagine you have to describe, you have to divide all this information into body paragraphs. कैसे divide करोगे? How will you do that? Arrive Education. Hi, how are you? That's an interesting name, Arrive Education. Okay, look here. That was the analysis checklist. Now I am giving you the planning checklist. Planning means now you need to plan that how do I divide the information in body paragraphs logically. Question number 1, which categories will you include in body paragraph 1? You have 4 categories. इनमें से कौन सी category आप लेके जाओगे body para 1 में? Tell me, come on, this is simple. Which categories out of the 4 will you take in body paragraph 1? Name the categories in the comment section in the chat box. Now, the easiest thing that we can do here is highest plus lowest categories can be taken together. That means the highest category here is manufacturing and the least number of jobs we see are from agriculture sector. So that means our body paragraph 1 is going to describe manufacturing plus agriculture. These 2 lines are going to be described in body paragraph 1 and remaining what is left, the remaining 2 lines are going to go in the body para 2 and they are anyway pretty similar to one another, that is retail and healthcare. So in body paragraph 2, you are going to describe the retail plus healthcare. And what about the overview paragraph also? In the planning stage, other than body paragraphs, ask yourself this question also, that what is it that I'm going to take in my overview paragraph? Now, as far as the overview is concerned, for line graph, जब भी आपको line graph दिया जाता है ना, overview में आप दो चीजें कर सकते हो. नंबर वन, एक तो आप ट्रेंड बता सकते हो सारी लाइंस का, जो भी आपको ट्रेंड दिख रहा है. लाइन ग्राफ में सबसे कॉमन चीज होती है ट्रेंड बताना. नंबर टू, यू कैन ऑल्सो टेल हाईएस्ट प्लस लोएस्ट कैटेगरीज हेयर. So this is something that we can do in overview. For example, we can say that the highest number of jobs or the largest number of jobs came from the manufacturing sector for most of the given time period. The number here first increased and decreased, and the fewest number of jobs, the least number of jobs came from the agriculture sector. The remaining two sectors, retail and healthcare, the numbers here kept increasing steadily. That's it. आपने बता दिया सारी lines का, आपने trend बता दिया, and your overview paragraph is also done and dusted. Now this is your first 2-minute activity. ये checklist है आपकी, आप analyze करोगे graph को and आप plan करोगे कि what is going to go in each of the body paragraphs. Now we are going to describe the trends using the right vocabulary, and here you go. You have the word bank here. Look at the first sentence, okay? It's coming from these questions, this graph. It says the number of jobs in manufacturing dash from 15 million in 1960 to a peak of almost 20 million in 1980. So what do you think is the right option? Board is not clear. I am doing very good, Rosie. The board is clear from my end. What I do is I'll just erase the, okay, here we don't even have anything to erase. Okay. Look here. The first sentence says the number of jobs in manufacturing dash from 15 million in 1960 to a peak of almost 20 million in 1980. And these are the words. Which word or which collocation will you take from here to fill that blank? Let me know. Is it blurred for the rest of you also, guys? Come on, guys. Yeah, it's not blurred. So, Rosie, maybe check your internet, or what you can do is just refresh once from your side. And let me know the answer to the first blank, guys. The number of jobs in manufacturing dash from 15 million in 1960 to a peak of almost 20 million in 1980. What's happening here? Increased sharply. This is the right collocation that we are taking here. The number of jobs in manufacturing increased sharply from 15 million in 1960 to a peak of almost 20 million in 1980. Moving on to the next one, it says, after reaching its highest point, that means this point, after reaching its highest point, employment in this sector dash over the next 4 decades, falling to approximately 13 million by 2020, falling to about 13 million by 2020. So once again, after reaching its highest point, employment in this sector dash over the next 4 decades. Dash over the next 4 decades. What over the next 4 decades? Yes, increased sharply is absolutely correct, Abdul. Now tell me the answer to the second one. Employment in this sector, what? Absolutely, Jasmine, fell considerably. You guys are experts already. fell considerably, because if you see here, it's coming down from 20 million to as low as 13 million. So it's a considerable decline. And the final one says overall manufacturing experienced an initial increase followed by dash. Followed by what? It's not gradual विकास, it's considerable. 20 से 13 आ रहा है तो काफी अच्छा खासा डिक्रीज है ये, gradual नहीं है. Okay. Look at the third one. Manufacturing experienced an initial increase followed by. Come on, come on. Okay. The third one is followed by a downward trend. So overall manufacturing experienced an initial increase. So there was an initial increase followed by a downward trend. So here we have a downward trend. So this was about manufacturing. Let's quickly see what's happening in the other categories. And here you go, the retail. Retail is the green line. And it says over here, employment in the retail sector dash throughout the period, increasing from around 6 million in 1960 to nearly 16 million in 2020. That means 6 million in 1960 to nearly 16 million in 2020. So employment in the retail sector dashed throughout the period. What throughout the period? What's happening throughout the period in this sector, guys? The retail sector. Well, employment in the retail sector rose steadily. Rose steadily throughout the period, increasing from 6 million to 16 million. Right? That is about retail. Moving on, it's not fluctuation. Fluctuation is something when you see like this, that's fluctuation. It's a consistent growth here. It's a consistent growth. Consistent means continuous growth here. Okay? Moving on, the next one, agriculture. The agriculture sector showed the opposite pattern as the number of jobs. Now, agriculture is the orange line, okay, the last one. The agriculture sector showed the opposite pattern as the number of jobs dash from approximately 3 million in 1960 to only 2 million in 2020. See, what's the right word that can go here? 3 million in 1960 to 2 million in 2020. What's happening here? Okay. Fine. The agriculture sector showed the opposite pattern as the number of jobs dashed from approximately 3 million in 1960 to only 2 million in 2020, declined gradually as the number of jobs declined gradually from 3 to 2 million. Okay, remained relatively stable. I agree, this was stable till 2000, till the year 2000. I absolutely agree with that, Jasmine. But here we are talking about 2020. Okay, and the data also says that from 3 it went to 2. So if you see till 2000 it's relatively stable. I absolutely agree. If the year had been 2000 here instead of 2020, we could have taken relatively stable or remained relatively stable. But because we can see a slight decline here, and that is why we are taking declined gradually, because there's actually a gradual decline. Yeah, slight decline, slow decline, gradual decline. These are your words for that thoda sa decline that you see. Okay, so this was about agriculture, and the final category is healthcare. Healthcare is this beautiful purple line. Okay, now here it says healthcare experienced the most significant growth with employment dash from only 2 million in 1960 to almost 16 million in 2020. See what the answer can be? Gradually, because it's a gradual decline, Jasmine. If you see here, if you see the manufacturing sector, the blue line, it's going down from 20 till 13. So it's a very considerable, it's a significant decline in this case. But here, if you see, it's from 3 million approximately, it's just going down by 1 million. So that's a gradual decline. I hope that made sense. Come on, tell me this one, guys. So healthcare experienced the most significant growth with employment upward trend. Guys, वो जो आप collocation post कर रहे हो, that should fit in grammatically. So upward trend, fine, we have an upward trend here. I agree with that, but that's not fitting in grammatically. Even increased drastically doesn't go. The healthcare experienced the most significant growth with employment increased drastically. No. Come on, now I am curious. Who can give me the right answer? Increase dramatically? No. अब सारे तुक्के लगा लो तुम. Okay, I'll give you one hint. The answer is right here in these words. Come on. Tell me. Tell me. What is it that fits in grammatically? Okay, in that case, shall I tell you the answer, guys? This one. Rising. We need an ing form of verb here. चाहे आप उसके steadily के साथ आप कुछ और लगा लो. You can say healthcare experience the most significant growth with employment rising significantly. If you don't want steadily, you can take significantly here. जैसे आप लोग अभी बोल रहे हो dramatically, drastically, that is also working for this one, right? So healthcare experienced the most significant growth with employment rising significantly from significantly क्यों? Because you see here it was approximately 2 million and it ended up going beyond 15 million. That is why it's a significant increase. ठीक है? So that's how we use this kind of language, this kind of vocabulary to talk about the trends in the case of line graph. अभी समझते हैं 3 mistakes that most students do, especially in the case of line graphs, and they are not able to touch at band 7 or go beyond band 7. First, we will take a look at those 3 mistakes, and then I'm going to show you a framework which is SET framework, using which you can easily describe any line or any line graph. Okay, now look here. This is the structure. Let's understand the structure first. Now, the first paragraph is going to be the introduction paragraph. Inside introduction, you are going to write the paraphrase statement. Paraphrase statement means whatever is written here in the question, you write that in your own language. And I always tell my students कि please paraphrase पे ज़्यादा time मत waste करना, because अभी जब हमने time allocation वाला mathematics किया था, what did I tell you? I told you barely have 4 minutes per paragraph. 20 minutes आप साइड में रखते हो. You also need planning and analysis 2 minutes. You also need proofreading 2 minutes. You are left with only 16 minutes. And in those 16 minutes, you have to write 4 paragraphs. That means you have only barely 4 minutes per paragraph. और इसमें भी इसमें भी 16 मिनट्स में भी मैंने स्टूडेंट्स को देखा है कि 10-10 मिनट बैठ के सोच रहे होते हैं कि पैराफ्रेज कैसे करना है. स्टॉप डूइंग दैट गाइज. पैराफ्रेज से मेन स्कोर नहीं आएगा. येस ऑफ कोर्स यू नीड टू पैराफ्रेज, बट यू कांट स्पेंड अ सिग्निफिकेंट चंक ऑफ योर टाइम ऑन द पैराफ्रेज स्टेटमेंट, राइट? अब यहाँ पे हम क्या कर सकते हैं? आई विल गिव यू वन टेक्निक using which you can paraphrase very easily. Okay, so the question says the graph below gives information. Beginning statement हम कैसे लिखते हैं? The given line graph. Always write your beginning statement like this. The given जो भी graph है उसके आगे. इस केस में we have line graph. We write line graph here. The given line graph. Then the question says gives information. You can say illustrate, represent, depict, whatever you want. Let's take illustrates, sorry. Yeah, the given line graph illustrates. The question says information. We can write statistics. Statistics means data. So the given line graph illustrates statistics. Then the question says about the number of jobs in 4 sectors of the economy. Now, you know, most students would sit for 10 minutes and think कि number of jobs को कैसे change करूं. मत करो चेंज. अगर इतना ट्रबल हो रहा है उसमें मत करो. बाकी की चीजें चेंज हो सकती हैं इजीली. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, द गिवन लाइन ग्राफ इलस्ट्रेट्स स्टैटिस्टिक्स रिगार्डिंग द फिगर्स ऑफ जॉब्स. अगर आपको फिगर्स नहीं भी लिखना, लेट्स टेक द नंबर ऑफ जॉब्स ओनली. नंबर ऑफ जॉब्स. उसके बाद देखो इन 4 सेक्टर्स, राइट? नाउ क्वेश्चन में क्या लिखा है? क्वेश्चन सेज इन 4 सेक्टर्स. हाउ कैन यू चेंज द लैंग्वेज? पुट अ ब्रैकेट हियर and mention all those 4 sectors. So the given line graph illustrates statistics regarding the number of jobs in manufacturing, retail, agriculture and healthcare sector. Question says in the US, we can even say in America. And whenever they are saying between 1960, यहाँ पे लिख देती हूँ मैं. Between और and जब आ रहा है ना question statement में, between and, change it to from to. So now you can say from 1960 to 2020. Simple. It's a 2-minute game. Do not spend more than 2 minutes on paraphrase statement. You have to rewrite the information given in the prompt in your own language. That is paraphrase, but don't spend too much time on it. Then comes the overview paragraph. Now this is pretty important. Overview paragraph is very important. Now here you need to write the most important features. There are a lot of important features for your reports. For example, exceptional cases, highest and lowest cases. But right now, let's focus on line graph, okay? As far as line graphs are concerned, in the overview, we can mention highest plus lowest categories along with trends. आप trends बता सकते हो चारों lines का. Whatever number of lines that are given to you, tell their trend and also mention the highest and lowest along with it. You will be done and dusted. The way we just did, for example, we can say the highest number of jobs came from manufacturing sector, although the number of jobs here increased substantially before declining, whereas the fewest number of jobs came from the agriculture sector. It went through a slight decline, and the remaining 2 sectors had the almost a similar trend because there was a consistent growth that was observed in retail as well as in healthcare. So these 2 had a similar trend. Why? Because a consistent growth was observed in these 2 sectors. Yes, you can definitely join, Urmila. A lot of 12th pass students take the IELTS exam. Welcome to the community. ठीक है, so this was about the overview and then come the 2 body paragraphs जिसके बारे में हमने starting में ही planning and analysis stage में हमने decide कर लिया था. Anyway, if anybody is a newbie here, body paragraph 1 में we take our major categories. छोटी मोटे features नहीं लिखते हैं हम यहाँ पे. We take our major categories along with data. अब ये बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट है कि जब आप डेटा लिखते हो तो एग्जैक्टली कौन सा पॉइंट लिखना है और कौन सा पॉइंट मिस करना है. लाइन ग्राफ में वो बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट है. एंड वी विल very clearly understand today that in the case of line graph exactly कौन सा point लिखा जाएगा और कौन सा point skip करा जाएगा वो आज हम बहुत अच्छे से समझने वाले हैं. But anyway, major categories along with data go in your body paragraph 1. And what are your major categories? The highest plus lowest. That means we can take in body paragraph 1 manufacturing plus agriculture categories, highest and lowest. And उसके बाद whatever is left, retail is left and agriculture is left. Sorry, healthcare. Retail plus healthcare. These two categories will be taken in body paragraph 2 along with data. ठीक है. So that is the structure. But स्ट्रक्चर तो समझ लिया, हमें थ्योरेटिकली पता है कि ठीक है कौन से बॉडी पैराग्राफ में क्या लिखना है, हाईएस्ट एंड लोएस्ट क्या है, वी नो अबाउट इट, फाइन. लेकिन लिखना कौन सा पॉइंट है और स्किप कौन सा पॉइंट करना है, यू नो देयर इज अ गिमिक. इधर देखो क्वेश्चन में क्या लिखा है. आपका जो मेन क्वेश्चन होता है ना वो ये होता है, ठीक है. उसके नीचे ये जो सेंटेंस है ना, दिस सेंटेंस इज अ कॉमन पीस ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन विच मोस्ट स्टूडेंट्स इग्नोर. और यहीं पे आपको मेन डिमांड बताई जाती है कि भाई ये चाहिए हमें आपसे. तो जरा इसको ध्यान से पढ़ते हैं. इट सेज समराइज द इंफॉर्मेशन बाय सिलेक्टिंग एंड रिपोर्टिंग द मेन फीचर्स एंड मेक कंपैरिजंस वेयर रेलिवेंट. दैट मीन्स व्हाट? रिपोर्टिंग द मेन फीचर्स मीन्स व्हाट? क्या सारा डेटा देना है? I need a yes or no. Of course you can join Urmila. Okay, I saw that message earlier. क्या सारा डेटा देना है या सिर्फ मेन डेटा देना है? Tell me, yes or no. Do we have to give the entire data or just the main data? Main data. That is the demand of the question. तो उसके लिए हमें ये पता होना चाहिए कि भाई ये मेन नहीं है, ये पॉइंट मेन नहीं है, इसको स्किप करना है. सो हाउ डू वी नो दैट? उसके बारे में आज बात करने वाले हैं हम. So this was the structure. Now moving on, let's quickly understand. पहले तो 3 common mistakes समझ लेते हैं, ठीक है, and then I'll give you that structure using which you will be able to elaborate the correct points in the case of line graphs. And जो unimportant points हैं आपको 1 मिनट में पता चल जाएगा कि ये unimportant है, इसको मैं नहीं लिख रहा अपनी रिपोर्ट में. So let's take a look at mistake number 1. Okay, mistake number 1 is describing every data point. So wrong approach. Listing every year. आप अगर सारे के सारे years mention कर रहे हो, that's wrong approach. Look here. It says, example, manufacturing employment stood at 15 million in 1960. 1960 mention कर दिया. It then increased to 20 million in 1980. 1980 भी mention हो गया. After that, it declined to 17 million in 2000. 2000 में 17 million वो भी mention कर दिया. Before falling further to 13 million in 2020. And finally, we are mentioning 2020. Wrong approach. Wrong approach. Why is this weak? It lists all data points instead of summarizing the main features. भाई क्वेश्चन आपको क्लियरली कह रहा है समराइज द मेन फीचर्स, नॉट ऑल. दैट इज व्हाई इट इज वीक. अब मेन फीचर्स कैसे समराइज करने हैं? वेट फॉर अनदर 5 मिनट्स. बट रिमेंबर दिस, अगर सारे ईयर्स सारे नंबर्स रिपोर्ट कर रहे हो, that might be at the most a 6.5 band report, not a 8 band, not a 9 band report. Let's take a look at mistake number 2. Mentioning only the first and last data points. ये तो बहुत बारी देखा है मैंने. Wrong approach. Ignoring what happened in between. देखो. It says, example, manufacturing employment was 15 million in 1960. फर्स्ट ईयर मेंशन कर दिया एंड फेल टू अराउंड 13 मिलियन इन 2020. एंड उसके बाद सीधा लास्ट पॉइंट मेंशन कर दिया. बीच में क्या हो रहा है हमें क्या परवाह उसकी, राइट? सो इट्स वी आर जस्ट नॉट टेलिंग व्हाट्स हैपनिंग इन द मिडल. दैट इज ऑल्सो रॉन्ग अप्रोच. अब ये क्यों गलत है? इट इग्नोर्स द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट इवेंट विच इज द पीक ऑफ 20 मिलियन इन 1980. ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट है, इसको स्किप करा जा रहा है इसमें. It gives the false impression that employment declined throughout the period. इस स्टेटमेंट को पढ़ के ऐसा लग रहा है कि 1960 के बाद से employment decline ही होती जा रही है. So it sort of gives wrong impression, wrong information, which is why this is also wrong. तो लाइन ग्राफ्स के केस में अगर आप फर्स्ट और लास्ट पॉइंट मेंशन करते हो, स्टॉप डूइंग दैट. अगर आप सारे ईयर्स मेंशन करते हो, Stop doing that. Now let's take a look at the third mistake. It says mentioning only the highest and lowest figures. ये तो सबसे common mistake है. Wrong approach. Focusing only on extremes. Example, manufacturing employment reached its highest level of 20 million in 1980. So हमने highest बता दिया. 20 million of in 1980 before dropping to its lowest point of 13 million in 2020. That's it. Highest and lowest bata diya. This is also the wrong approach. Why is this weak? The starting point 15 million is omitted. Readers cannot understand the overall trend. इससे पहले क्या हुआ था 1980 से पहले that the reader cannot understand. हमें नहीं पता वो क्या हो रहा था. ठीक है. Now we need to avoid all these three mistakes. Mistake number 1, including all the data points. Mistake number 2, including only the first and last point. Mistake number 3, including only the highest and lowest points. तो फिर करें क्या? Let's talk about the set framework, which is band 9 strategy. Use this for all the 4 lines. Okay. Now here S stands for the starting point. जब भी आप एक line graph में किसी भी line को explain कर रहे हो, always start with the starting point and end with excuse me, end with the ending point. That means ये दोनों तो होने ही होने चाहिए. Starting and ending points तो होने ही चाहिए. इसके अलावा in the middle you need to focus on the turning points. जहां पे curve change हो रहा है वो रिपोर्ट करना है. सारे पॉइंट्स रिपोर्ट नहीं करने. स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट, एंडिंग पॉइंट एंड वेयर एवर द कर्व इज चेंजिंग. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, look at this. Okay, the set framework, band 9 candidates describe line graphs using this. So starting point, what were the figures at the beginning? Manufacturing की line देखते हैं, blue line. Beginning figures 15 millions, 1960. Where did the figures end? Figures end at approximately 13 million in the year 2020. Where exactly is the turning point? What changed the direction of the trend? So the turning point is this. It was increasing and then it started going down. So this is the turning point, 1980. That means we will start with 1960, we will move to 1980 and we will end at 1920. Which year we will miss? Which year should not be written in our report? Tell me. Hi Chris, I am doing very well. Thank you very much. How are you? Okay, tell me. Come on. Now I have broken it down for you. So if we are reporting 1960, 1980, of course, we are missing out on the year 2000 because nothing important is happening here. It simply is going down. Okay, so this is the set framework you will use not only for one line but for all the lines. Similarly, now if you look at the orange line, which is for agriculture, tell me which year will you start with? Come on, be quick. Let's talk about the orange line here. Which year will you start with, guys? Number 1. बहुत ही रॉकेट साइंस काइंड ऑफ क्वेश्चन पूछ लिया मैंने, नहीं? Anyway, the first, you are always going to start with the first year, right? After that, so in the first year, if you see the orange line here, it was just about 3 million jobs and then it remained stable until 2000. After 2000, the curve is changing again. It's declining slightly and ending at 2020. So these are the 3 years we will take in the case of agriculture. Okay, these are the 3 years we will take in the case of agriculture. So you see, for different lines, you are taking different years. For manufacturing, you are taking 1960, 1980 and 2020. For agriculture, here you are taking 1960, 2000 and 2020. And on what basis you are deciding these years? Starting or ending point तो चाहिए ही चाहिए. उसके अलावा बीच में what can you take? The turning point, as simple as that. Exactly, Divya. Divyanka, I'm sorry. I think Divyanka. Okay, my bad. Right. So I hope the set framework is clear. Remember, you need to skip unimportant details. In the case of healthcare, this is unimportant. 1980, क्योंकि यहाँ पे कुछ change नहीं हो रहा है. It's just stable, flat. Okay. Moving on now. Okay, so this is how we can describe using the set framework. Let's talk about manufacturing. It says manufacturing remained the largest employer for much of the period. Employment in this category rose significantly from 15 million in 1960 to a peak of 20 million in 1980. So first point done, turning point done. And then we are saying before declining steadily to approximately 13 million by 2020. Last point done. This is how you need to describe the trend of each line. Why does this score highly? Because it summarizes the trend instead of listing numbers. It includes the key turning points 1980, which is the peak, and still covers the entire period. It is not leaving anything out. So किसी के सामने अगर ये graph नहीं है, if anybody does not have the graph in front of them, just by reading this, they will be able to visualize that, okay, this line must look like this. That is how you paint the picture for the examiner. Okay, now moving on, let's take a look at the sample report that I've written for you guys, a high band sample report on this graph. And let's start with the introduction paragraph. So now I'm saying the line graph illustrates the number of individuals employed in 4 sectors. What are they? Manufacturing, retail, agriculture, and healthcare of the US economy from 1960 to 2020. Majorly language किस वजह से change हो रही है यहाँ पे? Because I have mentioned all the 4 sectors, all the 4 categories. Question में लिखा है 4 sectors and I am mentioning those categories and I am easily able to change the language. Now let's talk about the overview paragraph. Here you go. So overview paragraph के लिए guys, you also need to, one sec. You also need to understand one thing about overview, that here you do not include any data, no data, and you include 2 to 3 features only. You do not include a lot of information in the overview, a maximum of 3 features without data. And these features have to be striking. Important. Striking means important. Okay, here is the overview. It says overall the largest number of jobs was observed in the manufacturing sector for most of the period, despite a substantial decline in this category. समझते जाओ rather than just reading, listen and understand. What I am saying here is, overall, the largest number of jobs was observed in the manufacturing sector for most of the period. That means this blue line. Despite a substantial decline in this category, मतलब इतना solid considerable decline होने के बावजूद, this was the category where we saw the largest number of jobs for most of the period. That is what I'm saying here. Whereas the agriculture sector consistently accounted for the fewest jobs, and then after the highest category, now I'm comparing it with what? The least one, the lowest category. So least number of jobs came from agriculture sector. Now the 2 lines which are similar to one another, these two, now these two are going to go. So I'm saying in contrast, a steady growth was recorded in both the retail and healthcare sectors throughout the given time period. A steady growth, we are describing the trend. Okay. So no numbers. If you see, we do not have any numbers in the overview paragraph, guys. Now comes our body paragraph 1. And what did I tell you about dividing the information logically in body paragraph 1? इन चारों कैटेगरीज को डिवाइड तो करोगे ना 2 बॉडी पैराग्राफ्स में. So which category will you take in body para 1 and which category will you take in body para 2? The easiest way I told you is pick the highest and lowest categories, put them together in body para 1, and after that what is left, take that in body para 2. Let's take a look. So yes, we are going with the highest and lowest category. Here you go. Body paragraph 1, manufacturing, the highest category at the beginning, employed 15 million people in 1960. So we are starting with just the beginning point of manufacturing. The figure then rose to a peak of 20 million in 1980. 20 million in 1980 before declining steadily to 13 million in 2020. Before declining steadily to 13 million in 2020. We did not mention the year 2000 and we are done with manufacturing. Remaining almost stable until 2000, language देखो इसमें. The second feature, remaining almost stable until 2000, the figure stood at around 3 million jobs in the agriculture sector. मतलब agriculture sector 2000 तक बिल्कुल stable था and 3 million jobs थी 2000 year 2000 तक. That means just by mentioning this one year हमने बता दिया कि इस point तक ये stable था 3 million jobs पे. It then fell gradually to nearly 2 million by 2020. So यहाँ से there was a gradual decline and it fell to around 2 million in the year 2020. Okay, guys. Unordered videos, it's quite difficult for me. What should I? Okay, as far as unordered is concerned, Chris, we were getting a lot of requests about including grammar. And because the Zero to Hero series, this is our 2.0. In the first Zero to Hero also, we included grammar plus IELTS. Here also, we are including grammar plus IELTS. That is why probably you are finding it unordered because बीच में grammar आ रहा है. Okay, but the topics are all being covered. All topics are being covered. Okay, so moving on to body paragraph 2 now, guys. The remaining 2 lines. It says the number of jobs in the retail sector began at approximately 6 million in 1960. 6 million in 1960 and increased consistently throughout the period. That means without any dip, it increased consistently throughout the period, reaching 15 million in 2000. Reaching 15 million in 2000. But look at the next sentence. I'm saying although employment continued to rise over the final 2 decades, the growth was more gradual. Understand this sentence, I am highlighting it. This is how we notice small intricacies. Okay, look. So what I'm saying about retail is, just a sec. Okay, what I'm saying about retail is that in 1960, it started with about 6 million jobs. Then there was a consistent increase. And in this statement, what I'm saying is that fine, the increment was still there, but in the final 2 decades, means from 2000 to 2020, the increment became gradual here. If you can notice this. The increment became gradual. यहाँ पे तो sharp है. Till the year 2000, the increment is going at a fast pace. After 2000, it is still increasing, but now increment has become gradual, and that's what I'm mentioning here. Okay, moving to the next line. Now I'm saying in contrast, the healthcare industry had the lowest level of employment at the beginning with only around 2 million workers in 1960. So lowest level is the healthcare with only around 2 million workers in 1960. This figure increased moderately to 5 million in 1980. Moderate increase हुआ इसका 1980 तक. Okay-ish kind of. ना बहुत ज़्यादा ना बहुत कम, that kind of thing. After which the rate of growth accelerated. देखो यहाँ पे कितना मिलियन था स्टार्टिंग में? I'm reporting it at 2 million. Okay. Now in these 20 years, from 2 million, it went up to 5 million. That means an increment of 3 million. But in the next 20 years, from 1980 to 2000, it straight away from 5 million. From this point, from 5 million, it went beyond 10 million. So now the rate of growth was exponential. Now the rate of growth accelerated. And that's what I've written here. That after this point, the rate of growth accelerated. And by 2020, employment had reached approximately 15 million, the same as that of retail segment. 2020 tak it had reached a little over 15 million, the same as retail segment. That also ended right there. Let me know if this sounds clear, guys. So with that, it's the wrap of our second body paragraph. And for all the lines, I have used that set framework, starting, ending, and in the middle, I'm reporting the turning points. And in these two lines, which are similar, I'm also telling the rate of growth. That fine, they were growing, but at what rate they were growing. For example, here in the final 2 decades, this green line, its rate of growth became gradual, whereas the purple line in this decade from 1980 to 2000, its rate of growth accelerated. So it had an exponential growth. So that rate also I have mentioned in the second body paragraph. Okay. And I hope I was able to help in some little way. I'll see you very soon in the next lecture. Until then, take care and enjoy the weekend, guys. Bye bye.